Are we back once again? Somebody in the comments. This is a lot of times where I get my content, but somebody in the comments wanted to know about how to read premiums, similar to how Smarter Trader does it, or a lot of traders do it this way. It's a very simple, easy way to look at the market. Honestly, and I've probably said this before, but for quite a while now, I don't even really use charts anymore. Just because after a while you use so many other market internals, like the trend or the tick, and I've talked about those before, or just using the VIX or just using futures levels. You really get you start to get a really good sense of what the market's about to do, and if you're watching the market moving up and down tick by tick for 8 hours a day, which is what I've been doing for a long time. I would say a long time. It's only been about 3 years. But as you start seeing how things start to move, what Smarter Trader does is he uses what they call ratios. I'm going to try to explain it here best I can. But so say, for example, we're trading 4,500 SPX right now. So this is how he does it. He's going to be looking at SPX. Right now, I was just using this as an example because that's where we closed. But say SPX goes up 5. Let's since it's moving a lot more, let's use 20. So SPX goes up 20. And then you're watching Tesla, right? Tesla is trading at what, 900 something right now. So SPX goes up 20 and Tesla goes up 5. Okay, so now you have your ratio here, right? So it's 4 points SPX for every 1 Tesla. So this ratio right here, you got to track this in your head in a way. And it doesn't need to be like perfect. You don't need to be like, oh my goodness. I know there's some people out there who probably calculate it with an Excel spreadsheet, but me, I just kind of feel it because I've been doing it for so long. If I see SPX move up 4, I want to see Tesla at least move 1, or vice versa. If SPX moves up 1 and Tesla's moving 4, so on and so forth. You just want that ratio to hold. And if the ratio breaks, so now SPX moves 2, and you got Tesla moving up 3. So it was 4 SPX, and then only 1 point. You got SPX moving up 2, and you got Tesla moving 3. Well, there you go. There's your break in the ratio. All right, I see the break in the ratio. And I come to Tesla, and I go, okay, what kind of premiums do we see here? And I like to use Tastyworks. And the reason I like Tastyworks is because they give you this. We're not going to look at that. We're going to look at this Friday. They give you the implied move right here already. And so everything in the market is driven by these options. And we want to know what the options are doing first before anything else. Before you look at a chart, you really only ever need to use charts. Just like that should be like the last thing you look at, honestly, when you're lining up a trade. You want to look at this implied move here because the premiums are going to be priced based on this implied move. So we're looking at the price of the 980s. Why? Because it's at the edge of the implied move, and you're looking at the price of the premiums down here at the edge of the implied move. And then you got your standard deviations that get printed here. So here's our standard deviation to the downside, our second standard deviation to the downside, standard deviation to the upside, second standard deviation to the upside, and here's our in the monies, right? So you want to look at the in the monies as well. What are the in the monies saying? The in the monies are going to tell you that essentially what the move is going to do, like what the options are pricing in as far as a move to the upside or downside as of right now. So right now, the options premiums on the 920s are saying, essentially they're pricing in, a 30-point move in Tesla. Okay. So we got a 30-point move priced in. There are more complicated ways of actually pricing this stuff, but just to keep it simple. But the implied move of the chain is showing a possible move to 980. So they got the 980s priced at $10. So that tells me that there's actually 10 points. They're pricing in 10 points more at 980, and the reason they're pricing in 10 points is because it's worth $10. I'm calling it 10. It's really worth like 9.5. So it's 9.5 points. So they're saying that the potential for Tesla right now is to close 995 by this Friday. That's what these premiums are saying. These premiums down here, so we got our 30-point implied move based on the premiums here. Then we got our 9.5, $10 points on the downside. You can see that the pricing to the downside with this implied move is priced a little bit higher. Now, you always want to give a little bit of lenience there on the put side. The put side is a little bit more expensive, typically because people are using it as insurance to hedge their stock positions, their long stock. Typically, the market is just constantly long. It's always long. It's always going to be long biased. So that's why you always see stock markets just feel like they always go up. And the reason is because people can just buy puts to hedge their positions. So you start seeing puts, they're typically a little bit overpriced. So we got the same implied move to the downside, but the premiums are a little bit higher. It doesn't look too bad. Right now it's pretty balanced. A lot of times you'll see these premiums be 1.5, 2x, even 3x to the downside. Even if the stock is sideways, a lot of times you'll see that. And that's people that's really scared. They're buying the premiums. And so what that tells you, though, is if you see the premiums extremely priced to the downside, say these premiums here in the implied move are 3x the implied move to the upside, that means that the real implied move here is actually a lot farther down. And what I like to do is go, let me see if I can get a good example of this live right here. A lot of times ES is priced like this. Let's see what ES is priced for tomorrow. All right, so we got our implied move for the S&P minis. All right, so we got 575, and then we got, look at the premiums here. We're seeing 5.5 to the upside on the 45.25s, and then we're seeing almost $9, basically $8.5 to the downside. So our into monies are about 24. So that's in line with what SPX usually moves. Like when it makes a move somewhere, it's going 20, 25 points typically. So we're seeing it kind of drift higher a little bit. And so sometimes you'll see that where the premiums are just too overpriced down here. And what that means is that people are just pricing in too much downside. There's just really not that much downside here. However, the implied move to the downside, you could say, if you expected moves to the downside now, what you do is go find the premiums to the downside that match this implied move to the upside. So you got $5.5, $6. All right, so actual real move here is somewhere around here. And that's within the first and second standard deviation here. So now what you want to do, this is just the basic train of thought I go through when I try to find a premium that's either cheap or undervalued, or if I'm trying to determine a move or which way the market's going to go. So there's probably a lot of questions that are going to be generated here from this. And there's probably a lot of stuff I'm doing wrong here. This is just how I read it. So hopefully it helps you generate your own thoughts and theories about why options move they are. This is not the definitive way. So let me put that disclaimer out there. This is just a way to do it, and this is just a way that I've learned and how I've learned from other traders. So next thing you want to do is look where this open interest is. And in a video coming up in the future, hopefully, I'll show you some really cool charts that you can pull up that'll tell you what the gamma is at different levels and that kind of stuff. And that's going to be for a different video. But what I look at is like this open interest. All right, so we have a ton of open interest here. Why? Because it's the first standard deviation down, and it's closest to, and it's an even number to the psych level, and it's closest to that implied move to the downside. So you got a lot of open interest there, and but we don't have a lot of volume. So I'm looking here and I'm saying I don't see a ton of volume there. What do I see to the upside? Do I see a lot of open interest and volume? 45.25, a lot of open interest. Not a lot of volume. So I don't really see a huge move happening here until I start seeing some volume popped in. 4,400. Look at that open interest. That's right outside of the second standard deviation. There's a little bit of volume, but I mean the ratio here really isn't that great. We'll start seeing some volume kind of tick into that. The volumes, you want to watch the volumes here because as they start ticking volume into these contracts, you'll start seeing these prices start kind of drift higher. As these prices start to drift higher, this standard deviation and the implied move will start to drift with it. So you want to start keeping tabs on that. And what will happen is it'll essentially balance itself out somewhere. And so that's what's happening within the options chain. What it's trying to do is find balance, trying to find fair value. When you look at a volume profile chart, that's where that point of control is. That's what the options chain is trying to do. It's trying to find that point of control. And so that's how you want to look at it. You want to look at it like, where is fair value for the options chain effectively. And so I'm looking here and I'm going fair value looks like 4,400 with that open interest. But you can see a ton of open interest up here too, spread out up higher. So does that balance itself out? Now we want to watch the volume. We've been watching the volume. This has already ticked up just a tad there. But it doesn't mean the market's going to move off of 8 contracts. We're going to want to see this and this balance itself out. We want to see this and this start to balance itself out. The ratio is too off right now. All right, so what do we go over here? We went over the ratio trading as far as just watching the ticks, watching the market move. So you can do this with anything. Microsoft, SPX moves 5, and Microsoft moves 50 cents. Well, if SPX moves 5 and the next move for Microsoft is 2, that's a huge move for Microsoft. So you definitely want to look at that chain. Now you start analyzing the chain. You're going, okay, what are these guys trying to do here? You start looking at the out of the monies. You start comparing it to the in the monies. You start looking at the implied move and the standard deviations. And then you look at the open interest and the volumes. Open interest and volumes. And then you can start getting a reasonable idea of what the market is, where the market is trying to pull the price. That's sort of how I think of it is. The market doesn't move because it wants to. It moves because it has to. It's being pulled to a strike. It's being pulled to a level. It's being pulled to fair value. It could be pushed down, I guess. If the market gets way out of hand to the upside or downside, it could be pushed a different way or the other. But in general, I like to think of it as it's being pulled like a magnet towards a certain level. And right now, that level, biggest open interest as far as a single strike would be 4,400. And so I would definitely be keeping this one as far as when I look at the chain from here till tomorrow, I'll be looking at the 4,400s, and then I'll be looking at this 44.25, 45.25. Right now, it's trying to push up to the 45.25. I don't see much premium being added there. Why? Because there's not a lot of volume. So once I see this volume tick up, you can go in and either buy the contract, kind of ride the wave with people. Saw some volume right there, or go buy futures. Anyways, hopefully this video helps everybody. This was kind of like just a crazy video I wanted to put out just to answer that guy's question. But there's a lot more that goes into this kind of stuff, and this is just scratching the surface. So hopefully it helps you at least get started into how options traders kind of think about things. Use it as just a tool. Use it with whatever you learn from other people, and hopefully this helps you. And we'll see you next time. Peace.